there are versions of us that are really far ahead of where we are right now that are calling to us. And when I've noticed a lot of people right now are kind of in this weird in between, like I'm seeing all these timelines rapidly moving and changing, and it feels like every single day there's a different thing going on. And until the energy settles, the person can't find their resonance. And I think, again, remembering it goes both ways of like that land and that space, and then also us. And when we are locked into an idea of who we're meant to become or our next step, which I think this is the most important thing energetically right now, a lot of people have an idea in their head about the next step, and it's not the right step. Hello, friends, and welcome back. It is my last solo that I'm filming here at Dreamland before we close up, and I am just in all my feels. And so much has been happening in my life the last few months. I also feel like everyone I know is having a similar thing going on. And as we've talked about before, I always feel like my personal life is just really mirroring other people's energy, whether it's going on internally for you or externally for you. But I have so many people in my life who are moving, trying to relocate, or going through a really big life shift. I feel like we're going through a really intense identity adjustment. I know a lot of people have been noticing people getting removed from their lives and new people coming in. It just feels like a massive time of rearranging. And I always feel like this midpoint in the year is fascinating because the midpoint is where things start to really pick up. Things really land in that last quarter of the year. And I always feel like the key players in the game for this year come in around summertime. That's the phase we're in right now. So I wanted to talk a lot about what's been going on with me and my move. And I feel like a lot of the energies and lessons and things that I have learned and are coming up for me are going to be relevant for you in your life as well. I know a lot of people are going through a similar thing, but also I think it's a really important conversation to talk about the energetics of moving. And I know last episode we talked about the energetics of a space and connecting in with your home or your space or the place that you go to a lot. But I want to talk about the energetics of moving. And I feel like I do talk about moving a bit because I've moved a lot. I've moved pretty much every year for the last 10 years of my life. There was one stint where I was where I was somewhere for 3 years when I had bought a house, but then there were other years I moved twice a year, so it all kind of evens out. So I've moved a good amount, and I'm no stranger to the process, but I do think it feels a little bit different every time. And this one has felt bigger and more significant. And I think that always happens when you're moving into a different city versus just for me, when I've relocated throughout San Diego, it's obviously easier. This one has brought up a lot for me, and I was thinking about how I was joking on Instagram. I don't know why everybody cares so much where I'm moving because no one has ever cared before, but I just have had such an insane response to it, and also the response about why are you closing Dreamland and all of that. It's been really fascinating to me, and I had posted and I was like, I don't know why everybody cares. And a couple of you messaged me back and you're like, you were saying that you don't usually care where people move either, but there's just something energetically around this that was interesting. And so I'll just kind of lay it out what this journey has been like, and I'll try and be succinct. But about a year ago, I started having a lot more things pulling me to LA. Work was pulling me to LA a lot more than usual. And I used to live there a long time ago. I went to college up there, and then I lived there for a bit before I moved to San Diego. And a lot happened for me in LA. It was the first place, and really the only place that ever felt like home. And I always felt like I was just so embodied in my true self there. And it was also a really difficult place for me because I went through a lot of really intense trauma. I went through all of my health issues. I felt like I found myself there. I felt like I totally broke down. I almost died there. There was just a lot there. I also had a lot of extreme things happening, like getting pushed in the media and torn down in the media, and it was just like a lot for me during that phase. I had a lot of mental breakdowns. I met some of the best people in my life. I got kind of bullied out of the city. It was just like very intense for me. And I moved to San Diego because I wanted something slower and I needed some space to heal. And I really, during that time I was diagnosed with Lyme and mold, and I just needed somewhere else to heal and figure things out. And I feel like San Diego really gave me space to to connect with myself. And it was here in San Diego that I opened up my channel and all my gifts like really turned on, and I changed my career and I stepped into all of this, and a lot of magic has happened here. But I felt like it was kind of also this holding place, and I've always felt like San Diego is very difficult for me. It feels sticky. It feels like there's a lot of resistance. I feel like there's a lot of kind of frequency mismatch. I mean, San Diego, I think, is, in my opinion, objectively probably the best place to live in the US, because the weather is just an even 70 year round, 75, sunny. You've got the beach, you've got your suburbs, you've got some city. I feel like it's a great place to live, great food. But it's very transient, and the energy here I think is tough, and I have a lot of opinions about the energy here and the consciousness here. I think I don't really think it has a high level of consciousness. I think it's yeah, I have my own opinions, but it's fine. That's also just, it's just an interesting space. And recently in the last year, I just kept getting pulled to LA a lot more. I was doing a lot more in LA, and it became very apparent to me that I needed to move back. And I feel like everybody in my life could recognize that as well, just with how much opportunity I was getting up there, and the universe was pulling me there. And every time I would go up there, I felt like my whole life moved forward in one day. Like I would be driving to LA and I would get like 15 synchronistic texts and opportunities coming in my inbox. And it was just so obvious when I was there that my whole reality related to me differently than here. And then I would come here and I'd feel stuck, and I'd feel bored, and I'd feel stagnant. And it just felt like moving through molasses down here. So I knew for a while that I was going to end up moving back to LA after this time was up, and I was just waiting on the house I'm renting right now and Dreamland lease were both up in June. So, and I knew that. I know that people have been messaging me a lot, and maybe you've seen what I've posted or maybe you haven't, but just to be very clear, like when I moved into Dreamland, I knew the lease was only for 14 months, and that's why I said yes to it, because I wanted something contained. And I didn't at the time of taking this know I was going to end up moving out of San Diego after, but intuitively I just knew it's only supposed to be for this period. So some part of me probably knew, but it just became very apparent I needed to move there, and that has been the plan. And so I'm moving back up to LA. And I'm really excited about it, and I have felt really ready for a long time. It's a very different energy for me. I spend a lot of time there. I have a lot of friends there. I'm up there a lot for work, and so yeah, I'm excited. And it's really interesting to return back somewhere that has so much history for you, and it's just such a significant place for me personally. I have so much history there, and it's cool to come back as more of an adult, and having changed a lot, and even reconnecting with people. Like I've mentioned this before, but I've just been reconnecting with a lot of people that I was friends with during that time. So it's just, I can tell people can feel me. And I have had so many people message me saying, I had a dream about you last night that you're moving to LA. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many people, at least 50 people have sent that to me. And they're like, are you moving there? Because I had a dream about you. And I'm like, yeah. So it's definitely in the field for whatever reason. And it's been interesting because people have a very visceral reaction to me moving there. I know that people have their opinions about Los Angeles. I feel like people have opinions about every major city, whatever. But it can be an intense city, and I think LA especially, it really depends where you live and who you're around. And I remember my first time around in LA, people were like, oh, don't you hate it there? The people there are so uppity, or they're so surface level, or all they care about is themselves. And I was like, I didn't have that experience. Like, I met amazing people in LA, and I feel like that was just because that's who I connected with. Those are the people I spent time with. Like, I really didn't have that experience. I know that there are a lot of people out there that are like that, but I just didn't attract that. I didn't have that experience. And I think that can be true in any city, like it just depends on your vibe and who you end up attracting. You can find all types of people anywhere, but it's also, I mean, there's a lot there politically, energetically, there's a lot. And I definitely am glad I was away for a while, but it's been interesting because I have a lot of friends who have moved back to LA recently, and I know a lot of other light workers and intuitives who are being called to move back there. all around the same time. And so I'm just kind of watching that happen. And what we have to understand is, land changes and consciousness changes and the grid shifts, and we are called to do work in certain places energetically. And when consciousness changes, it changes who's attracted there. And we can look at all of these more 3D things, but there's a much bigger picture playing out energetically. And the energy in LA has changed a lot, but I do feel like a big reason why I'm going back there is to do a lot of grid work. And even leading up to it has been such an energetically intense process for me as I've been watching things happening in the 3D. And I've had to do so much grid work and clearing and just a lot of energy work on the land and on the space, creating openings, clearing out old stuff, because there are definitely forces that are trying to push people out of certain areas that are not of the light, and clearing that away. And so it has been like a very intense process for me. I feel like I'm really working overtime here, to be honest, just to clear the way to let a new template land in. And that's a lot of why of many people are being called to go back there. And so I do think, especially when you're called to cities like that, if you're a light worker, like it's part of our mission to help clear the energy of the space and regrid, retemplate the land. And that has been a big thing that I've been doing. It has a lot to do with where exactly I'm moving and why I'm being moved there. And so there's a much bigger spiritual reason. And this moving process was really different for me because moving has always been really easy for me. Usually it's the first place that comes to me, ends up being the place. And sometimes, I dance around it and I look at other places, but I end up at the first thing that just falls into my lap. And every time I've moved, something has kind of just fallen into my lap, and that worked out because I was being guided there. This is very different. This was very difficult. And I actually think part of why it felt very difficult was because at the beginning I didn't have a deadline. And I'll talk about this more in the episode after this, but you'll get next week. But I started looking really early because I was like, oh, I want to just give myself extra time. I want to feel spacious. And I thought about this before, but I was being very human, and it really got in my way. Like, I think I was doing a lot of like 3D thinking about it when I really should have just trusted my gut, to be honest. But had I just waited until I felt the intuitive now, I probably would have found the place immediately. But I was just way too in advance because I had a lot of people in my ear and I was listening to it of like, you need to look really early. It's going to take a long time. And so I was looking early, and then I kept finding places and they were falling through, and it was exhausting. And I spent the last like month and a half constantly driving back and forth from LA to San Diego, like canceling my schedule. I think I found the spot, having friends help me out. It's just been like very ungrounding and disorienting, and it was very defeating. And I had multiple houses where doing all the searching. Every place you see is completely different in person than it is in the photos online. So you really have to be there, and even just the energy of the place, but things look totally opposite. I found that a lot of places that looked really shitty online were beautiful in person, and then I found a lot of places that look beautiful online were pretty shitty in person. And then obviously it's like, which street are you on? Just being one street's difference is totally different in terms of noise and vibe. And so you have to look at all those things. But the other thing is obviously with mold. I mean, there was one of the days I went up, we saw like 5 different houses, and I was with my realtor and 2 of my friends. And I swear like 4 of the houses, the second we walked in, we were all like, oh my God, we're going to pass out. I mean, it was crazy. It was out of a movie. And there were just so many dynamics I can't even get into net right now. Again, I felt like I was on a reality TV show because every place we saw, something bizarre happened, something crazy happened. I told my realtor, I said, I know this is really wonky, but the universe is just not going to let me land in the right place. Or in the wrong place, sorry. The universe is going to make it so I have to be in the right place. And the universe will do all kinds of weird shit to make sure I do not land in the wrong place. And that was playing out. And my poor realtor, like she was saying, she's like, I've never seen anything like this. The amount of places that fell through or just weird things that were happening. But there were multiple places I found that then something bizarre would go on after I had the lease, and it would just get ripped out from under me. And it was definitely like rejection is protection. One of the times, it was just crazy, to be honest. And this happened multiple times where it's like you think you have it, and then at the last possible moment, the universe is like, when I told my realtor, I said, I want to pay attention to any of this resistance because I don't want to force. And part of the problem was I started way too early, and I really wasn't just like waiting until the last moment to give it a deadline. And if I could do it again, I would have just been like, okay, Christina, feel into like the 1 week you're going to go up there, close to when you need the spot, and it's going to be one of those few. But instead, I just kind of was looking at every single option. I swear to God, I saw every single listing for a 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom house in all of LA. But the other thing was I was very open to area, except not East Side. And basically, I was looking everywhere, which was very exhausting because I was trying to just let the universe take me into the better spots, whatever is best for me. It became apparent to me throughout the process, like I had to whittle down. There were a lot of areas I was looking at because I love those areas because they feel more nostalgic for me, or my friends live there, versus where do I think I'm actually meant to be. And I realized that the areas where I felt like I was actually meant to be that were better for me were maybe the places I was less comfortable. And so I had to like internally be okay with that. And then that shifted my energy. What ended up happening was there's kind of this certain strip that I ended up being like, okay, this is the spot. And it was kind of the one area I had from the beginning said, oh, I'm not living there, but I can look everywhere over here, but I'm not looking in that one area. And that ended up being the area where I got a place. And I felt like that was a really powerful lesson too, because I felt throughout the process very, very confused because I was like, I'm not getting a clear answer on this. Like they just keep telling me it's going to work out. Don't worry. But I wasn't getting a clear answer. And it was because I had mentally said, well, I'm not living there. So I had pushed this aside. And I think that's such a classic example of when we feel like we're not getting answers. It's always because the answer is in the thing that you said can't be the answer. And that is like the most basic thing. But, even I do that with my 3D life. It's always harder with ourselves. It's harder to read ourselves. That ended up being the place. And I'm like, if from the beginning I had said I'm truly open to living literally anywhere, there's no piece of me that's afraid of where it would be, I probably would have gotten that answer as well. And it was interesting because the whole time, again, I've never had so many opinions coming from people. I've never had so many people telling me not to move, that they don't think that I should be there. Intuitives being like, I don't like your energy there. Your energy doesn't light up there. And me just being so like, I'm supposed to be there. Like I know 100%. And I think that was a really important thing. I mean, it didn't throw me off at all, but it was interesting because a lot of my friends were bringing that up to me. They're like, do you think it's weird that so many people are saying XYZ? Or because all of these houses kept falling through and there felt like there was so much resistance in actually getting the house. I had a lot of people saying maybe you shouldn't move. Like maybe you're getting redirected, or maybe you need to spend another month in San Diego. And that I get why they said that. And everybody was telling me that. Like everybody was saying, you don't need to put pressure on yourself to do it so quickly. But my whole being was like, no, it needs to be now. It needs to be now. And I think this is a good example of the nuances with resistance and how we talk about follow the path of least resistance. There was so much resistance, but it wasn't resistance that was like, don't go here. It was resistance of like, we're shaking up pieces of you that need to get fortified so that you can become the version of you that can actually land here. And it took me a while. It took a lot of me in the process. Like I actually think the whole process stripped me down a lot because sometimes I need to be really ungrounded to actually feel my feelings. Like sometimes I need to be pushed to a place where I'm so tired and exhausted that I just like have a full breakdown and I can finally feel my emotions, which isn't ideal, but I felt like that very much happened to me. Like I had to get to a point where I was just so underslept and tired and exhausted and emotional that all of this stuff started coming up, like stuff from the last year, from the last 5 years, from old friendships, from past relationships. And I felt like all of it was getting rattled up. And I realized like, wow, I'm processing, I feel like the last 7 years I've been here. And it was shaking up a lot of vulnerability for me. And I always feel like when you are hitting your next level, like you never are unless you feel really vulnerable. What makes us each feel vulnerable is unique. A lot of the things that make other people feel vulnerable don't make me feel vulnerable, and vice versa. And it doesn't matter what other people think is vulnerable. It's what's actually creating this feeling in my body. Like it's a feeling. It's like I feel scared. I feel alone. I feel like I could be hurt. I feel ungrounded. I feel vulnerable. I feel raw. I feel open. And it's always interesting to me the things that actually trigger that in me. And I think it felt a lot of what it was pushing on for me was a wound around support, to be honest. And that has been the big thing that I've needed to vocalize and like sit with myself, thinking about and feeling into around like a lot of wounds I have around support and being supported. And, you know, a living space represents support. I think moving in itself, there's a lot of pieces. It's like hiring movers, packing, and moving has always been really vulnerable for me. And I'm really grateful I've always had people to help me. I've had amazing friends who have helped me, and or like partners. And it felt like kind of the first time I felt very like vulnerable in it, especially in a big move, because I'm doing a massive downsize and there's a lot of moving pieces. And then we're also moving out the office. And so it's a lot of like back and forth, coordinating these movers, those movers, other people to move furniture. It's like kind of a lot of moving pieces. And I was like, why is this so triggering for me and emotional for me? And I was like, wow, it's really around the support wound and around this wound of like, will anybody show up for me? Like literally, physically, emotionally, and what about in spaces where like nobody, like it's not anybody's job to show up for you, and like you just have to hold yourself in it. And it opened up a lot for me. I feel like it really like took me somewhere deeper within myself, and I was feeling into those energies and everything I was processing at the same time, and activated a lot in me. And you know, something that I was talking to one of my girlfriends about was I feel like people just don't talk enough about how emotional moves can be. I feel like this and my move when I was selling my first house that I owned, like that move was really emotional for me because I was selling my house and I had such a relationship with that house. It was so strong, and I was like selling it, and I'm like, I'm getting in a car and I'm going to Arizona and I'm never coming back here. In terms of that specific house. And it was just very emotional. It was a very intense process. And I feel similarly here. There's something about like moving into a city that has a lot of energy. It's kind of like walking into a lion's den a little bit, like, and leaving behind, I think just this giant soup of, I was super sick here. I went through a lot of emotions. I've had a lot of significant relationships here. Like there's just a lot of old stuff, to be honest, that I've moved beyond, and I've done a lot of healing around. But there's something honestly that changes a lot when you just leave. Like you can do all kinds of inner healing and moving forward and, you know, shifting your reality. And I don't see any of those people or have those dynamics anymore, but it's still here. Like it's still in San Diego. It's like a smell in the room, you know, it's like a mark on the wall that's never going away. And I was like, I do really believe in at some point, you feel the cleanest when you just leave. Like you, and I feel this huge sense of liberation, just like leaving the city and like cleansing it out and having a very fresh start. I'll probably pick up some of whatever I'm walking into. But as I was checking with myself and all of the emotions I was having during this process, I was coming in and looking at my energy body, and it was just really interesting watching how it has been such a process vibrationally of Like my energy field has all of these attachments and they look like thick tendrils to like places and memories and people and just the land in San Diego, like all throughout San Diego. I'm just like really entrenched in. And what the energetic process has looked like has been a process. Like I've been working on this throughout the last month, starting to let those, they're like octopus tendrils, like release and come back to me, and like unhooking from all of these places and people and dynamics and memories that I've made over the last 8 years. And it's like every day a little bit more happens. And what happens when we release those things is there's an emotional process for anything that we didn't fully release or we haven't yet. Like you're cutting a lot of cords. And so that's been like active in my body and calling up a lot of emotions. And then on the other side, it was a lot of, I was looking at LA and like needing to kind of part the seas and be like, no, we're opening this grid. Like, no, we're not allowing that energy in. And that was also a really big process. Like took me like 3 weeks to really clear enough where I felt like I have a path. And it's kind of those two processes going on at the same time. And once that actually opened up, then it was like, okay, let me clear out this space and now let me actually start to architect and grid what I want to walk into. Like it's this whole vibrational process that needed time and space to occur. And I'll talk about the 3D effects of that. And as that was happening energetically, here I am like frustrated. Why have I not found the house yet? Well, it's because that all had to happen vibrationally first. And for me to be in an energetic state where I can walk forward into that, all of these tendrils and attachments had to be cleared. Like I had to just be fully on the boat, nothing anchoring me back here to move forward. And until I did that, the lease couldn't get signed. Like the right lease couldn't get signed. And that's where honestly, like doing energy work is so helpful and connecting with your psychic abilities and seeing it that way, because there's always an energetic reason why things are happening in the physical. And until vibrationally that was clean, couldn't walk forward. And this happens a lot in a lot of areas of people's lives. Like if you are struggling to, let's say you left your job and you can't find a new job. I know people, they're like, I put in 500 applications and had like 50 interviews and nothing's landing. That's not normal, right? Or dating. It's really common in dating when people feel like they just can't meet someone new. It's super common after, a divorce, for example, or a long-term significant relationship, or even multiple, because it's the same energy of what I was describing. Like we're still hooked into these old things. So we're not actually free to walk into a new setting. Both of those sides have to be clear energetically. The past we have to unhook from. That can be a process. So I'm just fully my field movable. And then the other step is opening up the energy ahead of us and architecting and building out, what do I want to step into? And I couldn't even come into the clarity within myself about what I wanted moving forward, because ahead of me was this forest with all of these thick trees that I had to kind of clear the path in, so to speak. So I'm looking for houses and there's, we keep thinking we find it, put in an offer, lease is drawn up, something weird happens, it falls through, we're walking away like multiple times. This is exhausting. I'm so tired of driving back up and forth, blah, blah, blah. Now we're getting down to the wire, like gotta move soon. And I go up one more time, find a couple places, and they're all great. And there's some different trade-offs as there are. And I was very much like, okay, let's just let the universe knock out where I'm not supposed to be. So that happened. And then I'm down to these two places, and one literally copy paste off my vision board. Like I couldn't, when my realtor sent me this listing, my jaw dropped because I looked at my vision board, which I honestly don't really look at that much. It's just sitting there. But I looked over at it because I barely noticed, and I was like, wait, what? Literally copy paste vision board. Insane. Redone. I'm like, this looks like something someone built for me. Like the chandeliers, the detail. It was so me in exact, like, part of LA I wanted, blah, blah, blah. And it it just felt like me. And then there's this other place I found that I was kind of surprised by. It was last minute. It was in an area that I didn't think I wanted to live in a building. But I went there. I was like, wait, this is like really solid. And I was really torn between these two places. And I started to think into, and it comes back to, and like, you know, what's the energy I want to feel? And I very quickly realized like it's kind of like choosing between two different versions of me, you know, and because every house has a different energy and every location has a different energy and like how I'm going to be spending my time and how I'm going to be feeling. And one felt a lot more like really in my internal process and a bit more solo, but really big, deep transformation. And the other felt a lot more social and relational and like more creative, but maybe a little more like cluttered. And that's not usually what I pick. Like usually I pick this, and I was thinking about, wow, like this is my dream place basically. Handed on a silver platter for me. Like no one's taken it. It's actually the cheapest place I found, which is crazy because rent is disgusting. And I was like, I cannot, usually I would see that. I'm like, there's no resistance with this place, straight off my vision board, open for me. They were like, they wanted to take me, all of that. And I'm like, why is there this thing in me that doesn't think it's the right place? Like, that's one that makes sense. That's the one that like looks like me, feels like me, very like healer in the cave, healer in the forest, brand new redone. But I was just like, and actually the more people that told me to take that one and not take the other one because they're like, oh, it's gonna be too loud, you're gonna get distracted, I would hate that noise, blah blah. I realized, I'm like, actually I want to be there. The more people told me not to go there, the more I was like, I actually want to be there. And I realized a lot of what was going on was I was so locked into the version of me I am right now, what I'm used to and I'm comfortable with, and like kind of if I continue down that trajectory, that I was blind to the possibility of who else I could become and what else maybe I wanted. And one of the things that one of my friends kept saying to me, she said, I just want to reflect back to you that one of the things that you've said is that you really want this phase of your life to feel more social. And I was like, yeah, that's true, because I really haven't had a living space that felt that way. Like ever since I was living in dorms, probably. I felt a lot more solo because that's what I tend to like. But I don't know that that's what I need in this next phase. And I ended up going with that one. And I went with that one. And there was still a lot of resistance. It like took 2 weeks to sign this lease. And there was like a lot of back and forth. And, you know, like there's a fly. See? Just disturbances. And the landlord was also moving himself, and so there was just he was really busy and managing a lot, and actually like had a moment where he's like, oh, like I'm actually questioning if I even want to rent it right now. And so there was just kind of a lot of pause, and I'm like, oh my god, is this resistance? Is this a sign? And it just unfolded so opposite how things usually do, but I felt like it was a really, really good test and like lesson for me around surrender and trust, and how alignment can look really different in different situations. And I think that people think alignment always means no bumps and no obstacles. And again, this felt like very, very bumpy, but there was something deeper within me that was like, I need to be on this ride and on this journey. And that journey energetically, when I looked at it, again, it was exactly what I described, where it wasn't until like 3 days ago I realized it has taken me this long to let go of a lot of things I was attached to and be open to a different way of living and a different way of being. And the second I did, lease got signed, payments made, everything's smooth sailing. But it like took me that long to be ready. And what I was really thinking about is there is a difference between saying like, take me where I meant to go and help me to be available for that journey and for that process, and actually taking the time to vibrationally upgrade ahead of yourself. And I think sometimes the journey is what makes us, right? The journey in itself. Like, for example, it could be I move into this house and this house transforms me. I show up differently because of the container of the space. But really what this was asking of me was I needed to fully become a match for that space before it was going to allow me in. It wasn't that I was going to get there and then change. And I think that's a very different vibrational experience. And I really could only understand this when I was looking at the energy and watching how I'm like, this feels correct, but we are not matching. We are not matching. It's like these two puzzle pieces. And it reminds me a lot of when I'm looking at people come toward their life partner. And even when sometimes clients will come to me and their life partner will be in their life, but they're like, I'm not romantically attracted to them, or no, there's nothing between us, or sometimes people are like with the wrong people. And it's like, I'm watching the energy and I'm like, it's you guys both are going to change and become different versions of yourselves, and then the puzzle pieces land. And it's not that you're going to meet each other and then become each other's match through the process of being together, right? And it can be the same thing with homes or jobs. And so I felt like that was a really important lesson to think about. Like, instead of us always depending on, okay, let me just take the action and then when I get there, I'll become, because it'll force me to become. That can be true and that can work. And I do that a lot. This was really asking something different of me. It was asking me to release a lot of my attachments and my assumptions and my expectations about myself and who I wanted to be, and to be very open to a very different way of doing things, and be open to what if the universe wants me somewhere like I didn't think I wanted to be, in a place that makes me really uncomfortable. And when I really zoomed out, because a lot of my friends were even saying like, well, are you looking over there because you think you should be there? They're like, don't you want to be closer to your friends? And I was like, I want to be closer to my friends because I'm more comfortable with it. But intuitively, I actually think I need to be in the place where I'm the least comfortable. Which that discomfort was a part of me manifesting resistance. Like, that discomfort was a part of me that was looking for reasons of like, this can't be it, you know? And so I had to kind of come to terms with that part of me and sit in that part of me and actually start to transmute that to become ready, you know? And so it has unlocked a lot in me. And I feel like I've been in this soup of energy for the last month and a half. And while that happened, I kept saying this, like, we'll say prayer, but every time I would meditate and work on my energy field, Caitlin said this to me on the phone. I'm like, can you text me that? Cause I'm going to use that one. It was just like, reveal yourself or get the fuck out. Reveal yourself or get the fuck out. And I was just constantly setting that intention every time I was working in my fields. And I felt like every other day someone would reveal themselves and someone would get the fuck out. Like, I was just watching people and things falling out, and me getting like the ick for people that have been in my life for a long time, and also brand new people coming in my life who are like soul family, getting really close, and just watching all these dynamics change. And I'm like, wow, being in this soup is actually really helpful. And I really felt like it was, you know, that butterfly part of the chrysalis where you turn to goop, and it actually is very painful. It's not this amazing thing. One of the things that my guides were talking to me about this morning, because I was just kind of like, what do I want to bring forward today? They're just bringing up the difference between, when you think about transformation, it's a very different mechanism and experience when you're going through more internal transformation and when you're going through more external transformation. And what I mean by that is, this felt like the external shift was the vehicle for the transformation, versus sometimes there are times where you're just like moving through this intense emotional process by yourself in your bedroom for 5 months and you become a different person. This is very much like, I felt like my shell got cracked on the outside, like this whole process of driving back and forth and looking at places and all these conversations and all of the rejection and the acceptance and the different, you know, people's reactions and all of that was like this very external thing going on in my reality that triggered a lot of this inner transformation, when usually it's the opposite for me. Usually it's my inner transformation that kind of triggers the external reality to change. And I think the way it happened this time was just like a lot more vulnerable for me. And that made me realize like, maybe that's the way it should be done, you know, because I really think the way that it's more vulnerable for me is the way that I'm really growing, not the other way around. And I think that's something really helpful to think about, you know, in your life, like what feels easier for you. And I think the more spiritual we are and the more in the ethers we are, sometimes the more 3D stuff is, like the harder it is, the more it cracks us open. But this really like this whole process, and it had to be a process. I'm like, I had a lot of things rewire around money and opportunity, around my expectations and my assumptions about myself, around friendships and relationships, about timing. Like, it just really blew a lot of my beliefs open, and it was very powerful. And I feel like it's really powerful to kind of go through this move very raw. I'm like, even just telling people in my life, I'm like, look, I'm going to be kind of raw the next 2 weeks. I think the whole process of packing up your house and going through old things and then physically moving and landing in a new space and like being in a new space by yourself that first night and like feeling the energy, and even just like the energy did not move with this house until the current tenants left, because I was like tracking like, why is this not going through? And they were taking a while to move out. And once they finally moved out, which was like 2 days ago, I felt this opening in the energy, and then everything went really fast because I could clear their energy out of the house and then start to calibrate in with me. And it was one of those things where I was like, this shit is so real. Like, I'm like, straight up the energy is clogged, so there's no room for me. And the second I cleared it, things started to go through, like in the physical. And that's why like the energy work stuff clarifies everything. It was honestly the thing keeping me good to go. But I am, I'm really excited about this next phase. I think there's something really powerful about changing cities. Obviously, you can look at like your astrocartography and things like that. Mine really isn't different because I'm just moving north. But we have to remember that all places have templates, they have grids, they have old versions of ourselves, they have new versions of ourselves, they have opportunity, they have ideas, they all have a different flow, and that different cities, that flow is changing all the time. And we can feel very non-resonant with a space, with a city, with a country, whatever, and then tomorrow that could change drastically depending on who or what is in charge and the people there and the consciousness there. And sometimes we get drawn places because we need to help be part of the upgrade. Sometimes we're drawn places because it's going to upgrade us, and usually it's a combination of everything. But I think we are really in this soup right now of, there are versions of us that are really far ahead of where we are right now that are calling to us. And when I've noticed a lot of people right now are kind of in this weird in between. Like, I have a lot of friends who are struggling to find somewhere to land. Like, they're in between houses. They can't, there's so many people I know in different cities, and it's interesting. And the way that my guides show it is just like, I'm seeing all these timelines rapidly moving and changing, and it feels like every single day there's a different thing going on. And until the energy settles, the person can't find their resonance. And I think, again, remembering it goes both ways of like that land and that space, and then also us. And when we are locked into an idea of who we're meant to become or our next step, which I think this is the most important thing energetically right now, a lot of people have an idea in their head about the next step, and it's not the right step. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. It's so obvious. Like, everybody's like, yeah, I've been planning on here, I've been planning on this, I've been planning on that, and it's like literally your next step, and nothing is landing because you're actually being asked to go here, which is maybe more uncomfortable, which is maybe not what you wanted to do, whatever it is. And so I'd really think about whatever your plans have been, and I would think about and open yourself up to receiving, is there something I meant to do or a place I meant to go that was not part of my plan? Is there a different plan that is asking something different of me? And I don't even think about it like stepping into a higher version. I almost just think about it stepping into a lateral version. I think there's a lot of lateral movement right now, and that's a very different energy. Like, I don't feel like I'm being asked to rise into more of my high priestess. I feel like I'm being asked to laterally step into more of my social butterfly, like, which I already have, but it's just like spending more time there. And usually I like to vertically move, but this time I'm laterally moving, and there have been enough clients I've seen recently where I'm noticing a lot of that as well. And just because it's a lateral move doesn't mean it's worse. It can be just as good because we're working in the quantum. It's not just up that matters, down matters, side to side matters. And that's what it is to work in the quantum field. So that's been a bit about my journey. There's so much that shakes up in a moving situation. We have such intense connections and cords and identities held with all of these containers. You know, I look at just like my dynamic with Dreamland, my dynamic with my current house, my dynamic with San Diego, my dynamic with my friendships, different relationships here. It's like all of these different containers. And the second I leave, they all break open and I'm suddenly in a new space. And when you're sensitive, like I'm very intuitively aware and sensitive, I'm literally feeling all of these, it feels like containers breaking every single day. Like I literally feel glass shattering every single day, and it's kind of painful, but it's also kind of liberating. And then I feel like more and more emotions just start to come out, and I'm just kind of processing all of those cords and all those energies. And I think my biggest lesson has just been that there's nothing to do or like visualize or whatever for the future. It's just about me letting myself sit in this soup right now and honoring all of these containers that are breaking and all of the release, and having a proper closing for all those things and a proper honoring of those things. And that's what I have been doing. So I have been a mixture of all the things, all the feels recently. I've been feeling all the feels. I was like, I feel like I'm feeling all the feels that could be felt. It's kind of my whole MO right now. And I really like that. You know, I always like, I'm feeling super excited because I love the feeling of like knowing something big is around the corner, but not knowing what it is. Like I love it. And it's so rare for me to feel that way, but I feel it. And it's always fun when it comes where you don't expect, but I do feel like something really good on the other side. I'm really excited about a new chapter for me. I'm going to miss a lot of things, but I'm also really ready. And, you know, if you are going through like an identity shift right now, or a logistic change, a relationship change, a physical move, figuring out where to land, being in the in-between, I would just invite you to really sit with like what's going on energetically. And sometimes it's not about changing the energy, but just recognizing what it is and giving it its time to move, because you are not the only puzzle piece, right? Like I literally couldn't make my way into this place until the current tenants decided to leave and then decided to like move their stuff. Like their choices were impacting my ability to vibrationally land, and I can't control that. And that's the thing about understanding all this work. Like it gives you so much more power, and it gives you more control in certain ways over your own reality in life. And it also humbles you to the fact of how much we don't control. And there's lots of other puzzle pieces, bigger things at play, bigger divine plans, bigger forces, your higher self, and other people with free will choice. And they're also affecting the energy as well. And I think that's really that kind of tension, that beautiful tension between the I and the we. And, you know, we as a collective, I think a lot of people have been in more of an I phase over the last decade, like learning themselves. And now we have to learn how to like be in the we. And a lot of that is understanding this collective energy, you know, the collective choices people are making, the collective consciousness, the grids, the land templates, grid working, like working together in those aspects. And that's where we're going to make a lot of change, I think. So that is my update. A lot of lessons in there for me. So I hope there were some in there for you too. And I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear if you're going through kind of a similar energetic, or if you've been feeling like there are pieces that haven't been able to land in your life, or if you're going through a transition, what's coming up for you, what your experience has been. Because I know a lot of people are going through some interesting things right now before we hit June, the June-July explosive change sprint. So please let me know below. The practice I have been coming back to, I've been using the app, and I like to do the releasing other people's energy for a quickie clear, cord cutting and energy clearing meditation, moving those again and again. And then recently, because I'm really close to the move right now as I record this, I've been doing the starting a new cycle guided energy work, because that's such a beautiful ritual to clear out the old and step into the new. So those are some practices that have been really helping me. If you're looking for a recommendation, and if you don't already have the app, you can get a 7-day free trial. We'll post the link below so that you can check that out, because it is my ride or die every day. And that's all I have to tell you today. That is going to complete my final solo here in Dreamland. I'm going to miss this space so much. I love it so much. It has held so many beautiful conversations. And you all are connected to it as well, because you listen, you watch, and I know she's very grateful for all of our energy as well. So giving her the proper thank you. And that's going to complete our episode for today. So I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks for hanging out with me in this episode, and I will chat with you again next time.